Hey, it's Jack from Jack Gately Real Estate and the Online Real Estate Academy. Okay, so Allan Dalton from the famous ambush video back in the Sitzer trial back in October of 2023, Allan Dalton is now telling Anthony Lamacchia just before July 4th that it was the social justice movement that caused the verdict in the Sitzer trial, and that the Realtor Association was not culpable, not guilty, but rather they're of course, they're victims. They're victims. They were vulnerable. They were vulnerable to the social media, the social justice movement of the last couple of years. I should have figured this out. Of course, the National Association of Realtors, they're victims. And Anthony Lamacchia starts this interview with Allan Dalton, which we'll take a look at in a minute, calling Allan Dalton a legend, which he might be. He's been in the business for almost 40 years, right? But he is also the guy you might remember that was in the ambush video from the Bombshell Commission lawsuit, as we said, out in Kansas City. And that video was played before the jury and was admitted as evidence. Let's just cut to that video. You might also remember that it was so embarrassing that it was on Tom Ferry's YouTube channel. It was on Tom Ferry's YouTube channel. And during the trial is when it was being showed, like the next day, Tom Ferry inexplicably deleted it from his YouTube channel. And then probably, nobody really knows, but some anonymous YouTube account put it back up, probably Michael Ketchmark's law firm, I'm guessing. But here is the famous video from Allan Dalton. Let's see if we can get this queued up here a little bit better. Hold on. That's better. There we go. That's better. All right, let's play it. Let's cut to Allan Dalton. This is my video of him because I also saved it back in October.
Wants a reduction in the commission. Listen here.
There's no bleeping way I'm going to cut my bleeping commission. What do you think? I'm a bleeping hooker standing outside the Lincoln Tunnel at 3 o'clock in the morning, giving bleepings to sailors?
All right, you get the idea. This is trying to be a family show here, but that was the famous Tom Ferry podcast video from the trial, which Tom Ferry deleted. And now Anthony Lamacchia, you would think you'd separate yourself from somebody that, but no. Anthony Lamacchia has this guy on his YouTube channel just before the 4th of July, late June. And Dalton was the star of the infamous Tom Ferry podcast video. And now he's telling Anthony Lamacchia that political ideology drove the Sitzer verdict. Now, let's just be perfectly clear. As many of you know, I'm kind of on the right side of the spectrum in more ways than one. And I would usually take almost any opportunity to blame the far left for just about anything, right? But this is ridiculous. Even I think this is ridiculous. And so it's an amazingly stupid, and you can get this over, by the way, at Gately Estate, gatelyestate.com. Enter your email there, subscribe for free. Here they are. Here's a clip of them at the video. This is what he says. A lot's going on in the world. People think there's the oppressed and the oppressor, so that this is also comes under the purview of like justice and social justice. Minority home ownership is lower than 50%. White home ownership is 74%. So putting aside whatever the plaintiff motives are, whatever degree of mercenary motivation they had, always throwing the lawyers under the bus, which is fine with me. They had the settling was a perfect way to redress what's happening in the world. So sociologically okay. So the industry was very vulnerable, but it wasn't culpable. It wasn't guilty. When are we going to stop, or not me, but when is realtor world going to stop thinking of themselves as the victim and start to think of yourself as somebody that is guilty of a vast antitrust conspiracy, number one. And two, as individuals, when are you going to start saying to yourself, hey, to quote Rahm Emanuel on the left, for one as well, let's not let this crisis go to waste. This is going to be, seeing how I was just in Chicago, quote Rahm Emanuel, former mayor of Chicago. This is going to be an opportunity, which actually Tom Ferry just recently said as well in a big article that was promoted hugely by Inman. Is Inman really a news outlet? Yeah, it's semi-news, right? Semi-journalistic. You kind of wonder. This is a huge opportunity. When are you going to stop being defensive, looking for people to blame, and actually go out and find opportunity? When are people going to do that? Let's see if we have the introduction of this video. Here he is here. By the way, you can find this over at gatelyestate.com.
Headquarters. We just had a great meeting with our executive team. We talked about his book.
He's got a new book out. Mr. Dalton's got a new book out, and that's, of course, why he's doing this interview. And Lamacchia starts saying that he's a legend in the business, which very well might be true. Here is his defense of the case and his full quote about why it's you got to blame the social justice movement. Here we go here.
Let's jump to the most recent topic that made you somewhat infamous.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not the only one out there that feels what happened is ridiculous and unfair. But why don't you give your version? I mean, obviously the case was in Western Missouri. They show a snippet of a training video. Go ahead. You want to talk about it?
Well, now that I only represent myself and I'm no longer
Correct.
with the brand, I feel I have the freedom in this country.
Because he was with what? Berkshire Home Services or whatever they call it. Yeah.
Freedom of speech to give my reaction. And I would say this is my take on what has taken place. First of all,
no bleeps in this quote. Bleep and bleep, right? Remember that? Tunnel, the whole thing.
I think the industry, and maybe more than you do, Anthony, I think the industry was very vulnerable.
We're vulnerable. We're victims.
But it wasn't culpable. It wasn't guilty. In all my years, I never attended.
What do they say? What do they say in the support groups that the denial's not only a river in Egypt?
Any situation with you or anyone else, okay, where anyone talked about what fee should be, or if you don't charge this, if you don't pay this, if you don't pay this.
And then he gets into the mistake of misunderstanding the very crux of the case, which was not about setting fees. It's about inflating fees. Very important. That this is not about setting the exact fee. It's about inflating fees, generally speaking, not setting the exact fee. So he misunderstands the whole premise, the central premise of the case. Now, these are your leaders in the realtor movement. He's selling this book and he's going out and selling trainings. This is the guy that is effectively more or less the poster child for why they lost the case. And now he's out there trying to sell you a training to how you deal with it. And he he doesn't even believe that you were liable for it to be. You were vulnerable. You weren't culpable. You were vulnerable. You're just a victim. Like this video makes itself. Like really, this video makes itself. And by the way, later on in this post over at Gately Estate, shameless self-promotion, I did post the video of Kevin Sears and his family announcing that they were actually joining Anthony Lamacchia Realty. So many of you might have heard this or maybe not, but Anthony Lamacchia, who has basically become the de facto because he's filled in a massive hole in the universe, nature abhors a vacuum. He's effectively become the spokesperson for the National Association of Realtors. to the shame of you realtors who have let this happen. By the way, not a member. So he's basically become, and you would think that the association would separate from him a little bit and from Mr. Dalton a little bit, but no, Mr. Sears merges his longtime family agency out of Springfield, Massachusetts with Lamacchia Realty. And by the way, no, I don't know Mr. Lamacchia, and I don't know Mr. Sears, even though we're all from Massachusetts. There are 7 million of us here, us massholes, and we don't know each other. We don't all know each other. Hard for you, some of you to believe it, but it's true. So yeah, I don't actually know these guys. They know each other. In fact, Kevin Sears, the president of NAR, if I haven't made this perfectly clear, now works for Anthony Lamacchia. You can't make this stuff up. And Anthony Lamacchia just had the guy who was basically exhibit number 1 as to why they lost the case in Kansas City on his Crush It in Real Estate YouTube channel, and blamed basically the social justice movement for why they lost. I mean, these are the people that are leading your association. These are the thought leaders. You know, if I was, what's his name, Haber and Umansky, I'd be like, are you kidding me? They're the ones that are trying to come up with the alternative association, right? I don't know how that's going. We did do the conference call with them, and it looked like they had kind of a wireframe setup, but like, I'm not really convinced if that's a real thing or maybe just more like a public relations thing. You know, I don't know how that's going to shake out. It seemed like a really good publicity vehicle. We'll see if it actually comes to fruition as something. There was one other point I wanted to make here. You'll remember that, this whole article here reminds me of that quote from Shawshank Redemption, right? When Andy Dufresne is they're eating lunch or whatever, and Andy Dufresne reminds one of the other prisoners that everybody in the prison, don't you know everyone here is innocent? Because that's effectively what Allan Dalton is saying, right? I don't want to play the Shawshank Redemption clip, because if I do, that it'll be, they'll get copyright against me and all that other stuff. But you can watch it at the bottom of this article over at Gately Estate, right? Don't you know everybody in prison is innocent? Which is effectively, we were vulnerable. We weren't culpable. We were vulnerable. All right, we do have some comments here. Let's get it. Sometimes these videos just make themselves. Greed drove the suit. Yeah. And okay, if you want to say greed drove the suit, let me just say that greed is good, right? So they're a little Wall Street coming back at you. Greed is good. I do think, you know what? I don't know if you were aware of this, but I do some things for greed, right? I do, right. I have bills I want a family to provide for, right? I do things for money. There's nothing wrong with that. Agents are unindicted conspirators. Larry says price fixing is a crime. It's not complicated. Hallelujah, Larry. Thank you. Larry has a follow-up. Agents should be happy they got away with this crime for decades. Right. Yeah. Sometimes if you're throwing spitballs from the back of the room for the whole day, and at the very end of the day, the teacher finally catches you, because she's not sure exactly who it is, but she finally catches you. You just be lucky you got away with it for the first whole day, until you know what I'm saying? Exactly, Larry. Agents should quit and move on to the next shady. Well, I don't think I don't think being a real estate agent is a shady job. I provide a lot of value. I think I provide a lot of value for my clients. And I think there's a lot of other agents out there that do that. If you're providing a professional service and the client sees the value in it, then there's no problem in that, right? whether you're having your taxes returned or whatever. People call me for advice. Jack, what do I do? I basically provide advice. And if that's the number one product that I have, anyone can go out there and take a photo of a listing. Well, maybe not as good as my photos, but anybody can stand at an open house. What we really provide is advice. That's the value added. And let's admit, on the buy side, we're going to see some pressure on those buy side commissions. I was talking with a client the other day about this, and I was reminded what my father said. John, whoever mentions price first in a negotiation, I'll let you fill in the blank. Whoever mentions price first in a negotiation, fill in the blank, class, loses. The answer is loses. So I think the whole commission thing is very much like this. Up until basically now, the seller has been mentioning the number first. In the listing, they had to write, 2.5%, 2%, 3%, whatever the number was. And so they had to mention their number first. And so they lost. Now the buyer's agent has to mention their number first. And so now they're going to lose because now they have to be competitive. And that's going to have downward pressure as opposed to upward pressure on price. And that's actually the whole nutshell of the bombshell commission lawsuit out of Kansas City. When the buyer agent has to mention their price first, then that's going to provide downward pressure on that number, which is good for the consumer from the point of view of the Department of Justice. And remember, I'm a super free market guy, but I do recognize that on the margins, from a distribution bell curve situation, on the margins on the far right and on the far left of a distribution curve, that capitalism doesn't always work way on the far margins of the distribution curve, which is one of the reasons why we have antitrust law from that era. What era was that? What was the name of that era? On the tip of my tongue. Early 1900s. Right, that resulted in the breakdown of Standard Oil, all the big trusts. That's why they call it antitrust. So, typically I would be like, no government involvement, except to the point where sometimes private industry can create a monopoly, and that's what antitrust is, and that's what the whole lawsuit was about. All right, so stop blaming the social justice warriors out there, Allan Dalton and Anthony Lamacchia. I mean, again, I would usually be like, yeah, we can blame them for a lot of things, but this is ridiculous. To blame the far left for the outcome of the verdict in Kansas City, just absolutely stupid. All right, so that's it for now. Stop complaining. Get over to gatelyestate.com. Put in your email there so you don't miss another post. And as always, go make some money. Have a great week. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.